Chapter 1, 1919 to 1928. Beginnings, campus origins, and informal ensembles. After the unanimous passage of Assembly Bill 626, which California Governor William D. Stevens signed into law on May 23, 1919, the Southern branch of the University of California, as UCLA was first known, was born. Located on Vermont Avenue in Hollywood, the Southern branch officially opened its doors on September 15, 1919. It offered instruction for two-year degrees to 260 students and also enrolled 1,078 students studying to become teachers. From the campus's earliest beginnings, students were creating music at the Southern branch. By September 1919, jazz music had already pervaded the new campus, as a multitude of small jazz groups, many comprised of students, filled the confines of Vermont Avenue, where they performed at campus dances and assemblies. An October 1919 letter printed in the school's newspaper, the Cub Californian, even called for a jazz band to perform at mealtimes. In response, the columnist asked interested students to meet with Jazz Brockway in order to form a cafeteria jazz band. Jazz likely referred to Mario M. Brockway, a student who had a jazz band known as the Mean Syncopators. While students were enthralled with hearing and performing in an array of informal jazz bands, the Cal Band's visit to the campus in November 1919 left a noteworthy impression on the student body and fomented a desire for an organized musical ensemble at the Southern branch. The Cub Californian noted, "Never before has such enthusiastic response been received from the student body in either the songs or the yells." A month after the Cal Band's visit, an editorial in the Cub Californian called for the formation of a jazz band. The paper proclaimed, "One thing is needed to make our rallies even, quote, peppier, and that is a real live jazz band. Nearly every college and even high schools have a band at its rallies to instill pep." While the campus did not form an official jazz band until the spring of 1920, students continued to form musical groups and informal ensembles. One such appearance of an on-campus band occurred at a spirited event known as Frosh Color Day on January 13, 1920. During these festivities, members of the class of 1923 donned green and Irish garb, which they deemed the royal freshman color, and paraded in groups throughout the school grounds. Shortly after noon, the freshman class rallied to Millspaw Hall, where a group of freshmen known as the Frosh Band performed classical strains for onlookers. This spirited group included Clarence Wright on trombone, Barry Brannon on trap drum, Abe Jacobson on cymbals, and an unidentified freshman with bass drum. Charles Chuck Marston, the class yell leader, also accompanied the group. Although this group was neither an organized nor official ensemble, groups such as the Frosh Band provided the spark for other bands to form and remain indicative of the campus's burgeoning musical tradition, as well as the band's humble and informal origins. The Southern branch formed its first organized musical ensemble in April 1920 as Philip Warnett, class of 23, manager of the Cub Californian, called for students to join him in forming a campus jazz band. The organization sought to provide music and entertainment at athletic rallies and dances, and all musicians were invited to join. Merely a week after the Cub Californian announced that Warnett was forming a jazz band, the band had scheduled its first practice for May 7, 1920 in the music department, with plans to play at a campus assembly on May 10th. At this time, the jazz band's instrumentation consisted of a banjo, piano, saxophone, trombone, and trap set, though the group desired, quote, to have two of each instrument except the drum. However, by the end of May 1920, the instrumentation of the group remained tentative, and the group had yet to make its debut performance. The Cub Californian assured readers that dreamy waltzes and irresistible foxtrots are soon to become a part of our campus life. The jazz band made its highly anticipated debut at an assembly on June 14, 1920, with Mildred Cole and Grace Duty on piano, George Shepard on violin, Merton Tuttle on saxophone, and Cecil Risley on trap set. The jazz band, often referred to as the SBUC Band or University Jazz Band, continued to make its presence known on campus, performing at university meetings and dances in the fall of 1920. The University Jazz Band also performed in a November 1920 parade, where it gathered for a rally held in nearby downtown Los Angeles in support of Amendment 12, a measure which, following its passage by voters, granted additional funds to the University of California. Throughout the early 1920s, the jazz band performed at several campus events, including rallies, associated students' assemblies, and basketball games. The jazz band's early repertoire included Cal's fight song, Stanford Jonah, J. Russell Robinson's Just Because You're You, and Fred Rose's Don't Bring Me Posies. Meanwhile, women formed musical ensembles of their own at the Southern Branch. The Women's Jazz Orchestra made its debut during the second week of November 1922, which listeners received with great enthusiasm. Managed by Alice Brown, the organization numbered 12 members. Formation of the ROTC Band, 1921-22. The jazz band was not the sole music group at the Southern Branch for long, however. On December 17, 1920, men at the Southern Branch reported to an assembly to enroll in compulsory ROTC training, which began on February 28, 1921 in the campus's armory. Within this organization, Colonel Guy Palmer expressed the goal of forming an ROTC band, and on February 11th, the Cub Californian announced Sergeant George A. Westphalinger, former ROTC band leader at Kansas State Agricultural College, would organize the ROTC band at the Southern Branch. In April 1921, the band's music arrived, which consisted of marches and orchestrations, along with a separate $20,000 shipment of 28 instruments including cornets, horns, trombones, baritones, E-flat and B-flat basses, piccolos, flutes, clarinets, saxophones, and drums and fifes. Following the formation of the ROTC band, the Southern Branch planned to form a separate musical organization for the fall of 1921 to perform at football games and official university functions. Membership for this group, called the University Band, would be drawn from the ROTC band and the campus at large. The campus newspaper in June 1921 stated, "The importance of a good band as a publicity agent cannot be easily overemphasized. There are many occasions outside the campus when the presence of a band bearing the university name would be excellent advertising for the institution." However, the university did not fully realize these plans to form a campus musical ensemble separate from the ROTC band until Leslie Cummins, class of '25, reintroduced the idea in September 1923. The ROTC band continued to expand its role on campus during the 1921-22 academic year. Given the increase of ROTC enrollment for the 1921-22 academic year, Westphalinger desired to enlarge the ROTC band in the future, setting a goal of having a 50-member band. Until then, Westphalinger established a drum and bugle corps in order to allow as many students as possible participate in the ROTC band. The newly formed ROTC band held its first appearance at the Redlands game on October 8, 1921, performing in the stands for the Southern Branch Rooters. The Cub Californian noted that the group was well received at football games, inculcating a general spirit of melodious pep, while developing considerable repertoire. Especially appreciated are their renditions of the university songs. Featured at the annual American Legion Parade on Armistice Day, the band met at the intersection of West Adams and Figueroa Streets in Exposition Park, representing the Southern Branch in the parade. In December 1921, the ROTC band announced its first officers, which included Sam Z. Goodman as drum major, and Irwin C. Weaver, Louis L. Spangler, and Herbert J. Horn as sergeants. The 1921-1922 band had 28 members and devoted itself to the promotion of the Southern Branch's campus spirit. Doing much to link the ROTC with the student body, the ROTC band was one of the most alluring aspects of the compulsory military training program. The ROTC band performed at the 1922 Rose Bowl, despite the Southern Branch not playing in the game. The game, which was the final Rose Bowl game played at Pasadena's Tournament Park, featured a matchup of California against Washington and Jefferson College. The band was present to support fans of both branches of the University of California. Chief Westphalinger's SBUC band was on hand in full array, furnishing music for the rooting section, recorded Southern Campus. The ROTC band's presence at the game was especially important since Berkeley did not send a band to the game. According to the Cal Band, the Northern Campus did not attend since there was no enthusiasm for the game at Berkeley. It is worth noting that the 1922 yearbook and campus newspaper referred to the ROTC band as the SBUC band and Cub band, respectively. This demonstrates the extent to which the band had become an integral component of the young campus's spirit, as well as the fact that the band had already acquired several monikers from the student body, despite the group's brief existence. The band's reception from students at a February 1922 assembly helps illustrate the group's enormous popularity on campus. Described as the most popular organization at SBUC by the Cub Californian, the group unexpectedly appeared at an assembly where it performed a few tunes and provided accompaniment for students singing school songs. When student yell leader Red Borsam asked the students to sing without the band, a general murmur of dissent went up from all over the place, which indicated the students' support for the group. The ROTC band also performed at an assembly on campus at noon on March 3, 1922, celebrating the basketball team's triumphant victory that clinched the Southern California Basketball Championship. The group, in full regalia, held high carnival, hardly pausing for breath between its medleys of popular songs and martial airs. Later that month, the ROTC band performed at another assembly held on campus. There will be a band. The band, in fact, Sergeant George's rip-roaring windjammers who toot and blare for the glory of alma mater upon every occasion, the Cub Californian proudly announced. A new bandmaster took the helm of the ROTC band in May 1922, after chief musician George Westphalinger retired in April. Sergeant Major William Bill Sykes, who had served as drum major of General Pershing's band during World War I, filled the vacancy. The ROTC band, which expanded to 80 members in 1922, embarked on its first away football game on October 14, 1922, as the ensemble accompanied rooters on a bus to the Redlands contest. The band enthusiastically joined the rooters in school songs and yells on the journey, but members refrained from playing their instruments while en route in order to save their chops. The Cub Californian wrote the following about the excursion. Bill Sykes' windjammers occupied the front seats of both buses while the loyal blue and gold rooters got the rear berths. No unseemly jarring noises were indulged in until the exodus from the LA city limits was an accomplished fact. The lid was then hurled out of the bus, and everybody except the driver indulged in some roof-shaking Cub yells, followed at intervals by California songs, which were synchronized by music from a snare drum. The band refused to play because they were under orders to save their higher octaves. 2 weeks later, Sykes led the band to the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, where the ensemble performed in the stands during the Cal vs. USC game on October 27, 1922. Having deemed that the ROTC band had grown too large, Colonel Palmer reduced the group's size to 40 members and eliminated the drum and bugle corps on November 10, 1922. Those removed from the band returned to their ROTC drilling activities. Explaining his decision, Colonel Palmer stated, "A smaller band will make a better proportionate showing than one of larger size." The ROTC band underwent an additional personnel change at the end of November when band instructor Sergeant Ayers resigned, which resulted in the appointment of Thomas Vickers Vic Beale, class of '26, as the leader of the ROTC band. Best known for composing By the Old Pacific's Rolling Waters, Beale composed numerous other lesser-known school songs as well, including China, Eleanor, and Goofy, the latter of which student Franklin Pierce, class of '26, sang at an assembly in November 1922. Meanwhile, Sykes continued to hold the positions of band manager and drum major. Formation of the California Pep Band, 1923-25. Student body president Leslie Les A. Cummins, class of '25. First proposed in September 1923, the idea of forming a separate pep band designed to perform at all campus events. The idea came to Cummins after he attended a conference in Washington State and realized that the University of Idaho had formed such a group that, quote, was bringing fame to the university. In order to bring his idea to fruition, Cummins organized a university assembly committee designed to organize entertainment for assemblies and oversee the band. The primary motivation for forming a pep band was to increase awareness and prestige for the then-nascent campus. As the Cub Californian surmised, while the main function of the band would be to supply melody of high class at games, assemblies, and dances at the university, it would, in time, be called upon to entertain at other schools and colleges throughout the city. In this way, our university would attain the enviable reputation of having a versatile and popular musical unit. The Student Council promptly endorsed Cummins' proposal, appointing ROTC bandleader Vickers Beale, class of '26, as band director, band manager, and head of the newly established Assembly Committee. With a budget of $175 for the 1923-24 academic year, Beale called for experienced players to try out for the organization, known as the California Pep Band or University Pep Band. Beale divided the group into 3 distinct divisions: the varsity band, jazz band, and augmented band. The desired instrumentation for the 20-piece varsity band was the following: 2 cornets, 4 horns, 1 trombone, 1 baritone, 1 tuba, 2 clarinets, saxophonists, 1 trap drummer, and 1 bass drummer. The varsity band performed at the university's public events, while the jazz band, comprised of 12 members, performed at the university's social gatherings. Finally, the augmented band, a second-tier varsity band, was organized to allow band members to develop their playing skills. Southern Campus provided details regarding the formation of the band, underlining Beale's determined spirit. The band had its origin in a small number of enthusiastic tutors and blowers, who were led by the dynamic Vic Beale, to whom obstacles only served as a spur to greater activities. To him, the fact that there never had been a band seemed the most important reason for the organization of one. Under his capable direction, the Pep Band grew in size and in the approximation of harmony with astounding rapidity. The Pep Band made its debut performance on October 3, 1923 at 4 p.m. at a rally on the campus's Moore Field and was deemed a distinct success by the Cub Californian. The band held regular rehearsals and continued to improve. Larry Smith, class of '25, aided Beale in conducting the group. Additionally, in late October, the Cal Band sent copies of its musical arrangements to the band, which it used to supplement its repertoire. 2 days later, the band contributed to campus spirit by performing at the Sophomore-Freshman Brawl on October 5, 1923. The occasion marked a series of sporting events in which the sophomore class competed against the freshman class. As the rivals competed in events such as the tug-o-war, tie-up, joust, and the medicine ball relay, which Southern Campus hailed as the most exciting event of the day, the band was on hand to perform for the excited crowd. The yearbook succinctly noted, "Between events, Vic Beale's Pep Band did its stuff." Regarding the status of the ROTC band in 1923-24, Southern Campus stated, "Our band has had to overcome many difficulties and has come through the ordeal none the worse off for its experience. The band now plays excellently and drills with precision. It was difficult for the men to agree on hours for practice, but they at last got together under the leadership of Mr. Walter G. Powell, who took charge early in March of this year, 1924, and who has brought the band up to a high standard of efficiency. The band, in addition to playing for the Grizzly unit ceremonies, has furnished music for many campus events. They played at several of our football games, alternating with Vic Beale's Pep Band. And at our final basketball game, when the Grizzlies played the Poets for the conference championship, the playing of our band was excellent. By 1924-25, the ROTC band had grown to 38 musicians, and it was during this year that W.G. Powell directed the group. Southern Campus described the ROTC band as a well-drilled organization which plays the various numbers of its wide repertoire excellently. In addition to playing for reviews and other military functions, the band performed at football games and other campus gatherings. The Pep Band continued to grow throughout 1924 until Herman Allington, class of '27, who replaced Beale as manager in September 1925, drastically cut the size of the band to 10 players. Similar to the ROTC band's elimination of half its members in November 1922, the campus newspaper stated the band would now be a smaller, but more musically talented organization. The new ensemble included Joel Rieger, class of '28, as its director, Walter Lewis, class of '27, and John Haynes, class of '28. Other early performances by the Pep Band took place at Pajamarinos. At these campus events, typically held in late October, approximately 1,000 male students dressed themselves in pajamas and rallied at a bonfire. Afterward, spectators attended a student-led rally in Millspaw Hall, located at the heart of the Vermont Avenue campus, where students performed songs, cheers, and skits. Rallies such as the 1925 Pajamarino reinforced the idea of unity and the hope of establishing a collegiate identity for the budding university. It was just another step toward the culmination of the dream of a powerful institution of the University of California in the Southern Campus acknowledged in 1926. A university is as strong as the student body composing it. The student body is as strong as the spirit instilled in its heart. It is an infallible law. We are to be honored. We have that spirit. The Pep Band continued to gain support and acknowledgement on campus during the 1925-26 academic year. A bulletin in the campus newspaper stated the 1925-26 band, although recently organized, has readily gained recognition on the campus and a promising future is assured. Southern Campus, meanwhile, described the ensemble as one of the most active of the university's student groups. The campus continued to acknowledge the band as the ASUC Council recognized the Pep Band as a permanent organization in May 1926. At this time, a women's Pep Band remained active on campus as well, performing at the first Women's Rally on October 14th. One of the Pep Band's most significant appearances in the 1925-26 academic year occurred at the Grizzly Day event held in Westwood, where an estimated 20,000 people attended. As the Pep Band continued to grow, the ROTC band had progressed as well in 1925-26 under the direction of John Hughes of the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra. 62 men comprised the group in 1925-26, led by drum major William Brockman. 12 men of the ROTC unit revived its drum and bugle corps, which featured 7 buglers and 7 drummers. Southern Campus noted, "Many members of our ROTC band have enlisted in the organized reserves and constitute the band of the 364th Infantry, making that organization one of the very few reserve outfits that possess a band." In 1925-26, the ROTC band marched in both a Rose Parade and a Shrine Convention Parade in downtown Los Angeles. Southern Campus noted, "The Tournament of Roses Association was appreciative of the aid rendered by the band in the Tournament of Roses Parade staged in Pasadena on New Year's Day 1926. The unit was also an integral part of one of the parades held during the Shrine Convention in Los Angeles early last year, marching down Figueroa Street into the Coliseum." Alumnus recalls the ROTC band. In a 1993 interview, Everett Wood, class of 28, recalled his ROTC band experiences, as well as the presence of the student-led university band on campus. While ROTC was mandatory for Wood, who majored in chemistry, participation in the ROTC band was not. The band rehearsed multiple times per week, typically while the ROTC unit drilled. When the rest were marching, we were rehearsing, and that was at least 3 times a week. Wood recalled that the ROTC band rehearsed in a small room on the Vermont Avenue campus, the Armory, and rehearsed on a field outdoors as well. Of course, having so many rehearsals could get in the way of arriving to class on time. With so little time between rehearsal and class, Wood often did not have enough time to change out of his ROTC uniform, opting to wear it to class. Wood explained,
"I remember we used to have to run from the field up to the chemistry building to take an exam, which came on the same day, and right we got to marching, we had 10 minutes to get there. We climbed the stairs and there was a quiz, and everybody had already started. Well, that was rough."
Wood participated in one of the band's earliest known film appearances in the mid-1920s. Wood surmised that the Southern Branch's ROTC band was picked for the film because the studio wanted a cheap band. Evidence suggests that members of the band portrayed a military band in a World War I film that, according to Wood, had a German director. Wood remembers that the film was
kind of a love thing, and it was directed by a German who, I suppose he spoke English, but he spoke German to everybody there. And I know we marched up the hill, and if he wasn't happy, he'd raise his arms, "No kind mouth," and we'd have to go down and march up again. We did all of that. We spent all day there for $4 and lunch. They gave us a box of lunch.
Upon the film's release, Wood eagerly awaited his silver screen debut, but to his surprise, he did not make the final cut. "I finally went to see the movie, and a trombonist was the only one that really showed up on screen," Wood remarked. The film was possibly The Merry Widow, directed by Erich von Stroheim. There is a scene late in the movie that shows drummers and trombone players. Wood also recalled that being in the ROTC band provided him with a sense of community and camaraderie at the Southern Branch. Having grown up in rural Blythe, California, Wood did not have any acquaintances when he enrolled in classes at Vermont Avenue. However, that all changed when he joined the ROTC band. I didn't know anybody here when I came to the Southern Branch. I didn't know one person. It's a weird thing to come off a farm and come into a big city. But I got acquainted with, a half a dozen, Wood fondly remembered. The band at Founders Day. On February 15, 1926, the ROTC band performed for the opening and closing ceremonies at an event at the future site of the Westwood campus. During this ceremony, the University of California Regents received the Westwood campus's deed. The assembly gathered around the Founders Rock, which had been recently transported to Westwood from Riverside. On October 25, 1926, California Governor Richardson, regents, university leaders, and students gathered in Westwood for a ceremony dedicating the new campus of the University of California at Los Angeles, during which the ROTC band performed the Star-Spangled Banner at the campus's first flag raising. Everett Wood fondly remembered the rural hills of Westwood prior to the construction of the university, where he performed with the band at a campus event. I marched and played around the big bonfire in a barley field where UCLA was to be built, and that's all the light we had. It was pitch dark. You walked around an old hayfield, and they had a stand there for the speaker and light, but the rest of us, we had to go by the bonfire. They had a stack of boxes, half as big as a house, so you had to really back up after a while, and we'd march around, trying to play as a band. It wasn't as good musically as it might have been. We played a march, we knew it pretty well, and I think we played by the old Pacific's Rolling Waters. We were scrambling around, we couldn't see our notes. The field was rough and it was dark, but we had remembered enough to play. The rest couldn't see anything except the light from the bonfire. Pep Band 1926. In the fall of 1926, Joe Rieger directed the band, named the Grizzly Band after the school's short-lived mascot. Rieger hoped to increase membership to 40 or 50 players, arranged for the band to march drill at football games, and planned to obtain uniforms. In response to Rieger's goals, the band quickly formed a committee composed of Vickers Beale, class of 26, Betty Mason, class of 27, Beth Schuler, class of 27, Richard Petrie, class of 29, and Joe Rieger to design the group's first uniforms. The committee presented its uniform design, which consisted of a blue and gold sweater, gold-banded blue cap, white pants, and white shoes, to the Student Council on October 14th. The Student Council approved the uniform designs after making minor alterations to the color scheme and appropriated $392.50 for the band to purchase 50 sweaters and hats. Having received its first uniforms, it then fulfilled its first off-campus engagement at Jensen's Melrose Theater in March 1927. The band's performances in 1927 and 1928 provide a glimpse of its repertoire during this period. At the Southern Branch's first All-You Sing Assembly held in Millspaw Hall on February 28, 1927, the band performed a combination of marches and school songs, including National Emblem March, All Hail Our Bruin Men, Whistling Willies, Stars and Stripes, and Bruin Echoes, a medley of school songs composed by the group's director, Joe Rieger. Similarly, during its off-campus appearances at the Melrose Theater, the band performed Bruin Echoes, Stars and Stripes, and You're All the World to Me, a tune written by Carol Huxley, class of 28. In 1927, as the USC band was on track to have the largest band in the country at 175 players, the UCLA band continued to grow as well, as it sought to hire a permanent director for the group. In its search for a director, the Student Council first considered hiring Paul Hapner from Glendale, who would assist with band duties for $5 a week, but instead appointed ROTC band leader John Hughes to simultaneously lead the university band. The council hoped Hughes could convince a contingent of ROTC players to join the Bruin band in order to bolster membership. Following the Whittier football game in October 1927, the California Daily Bruin published one of the first descriptions of the band's halftime maneuvers, stating, "Between halves, the Pep Band marched around the field, stopping before both the Whittier and UCLA stands." The addition of a number of men from the ROTC band made an exceptionally finished drill possible.